State of Play features Stephanie Hansen, former Newcastle County president, and now with the law firm of Young, Conaway, Stargett, and Taylor, as is Michael Stafford. He is an attorney and MSNBC contributor. Okay, so let's pretend Charlie Copeland is here in the studio, head of the Republican Party. What questions would you ask him?
Well, I think Charlie's definitely happy. I mean, it's been a turnaround. This election cycle, obviously, Republicans have done better. They've hit bottom and they've rebounded. They've won a statewide race, Ken Simpler's win. I think for Charlie, though, and for the party as a whole, the real question is, can Republicans win statewide races in presidential cycles? And can they win statewide races where economic policy, environmental policy, fiscal policy, education reform, where those kind of the social issues are going to factor into the campaign. When you look at Ken Simpler's blueprint for winning the treasurer's race, Ken didn't talk about economic policy. Ken didn't talk about social issues. He didn't talk about any of the red meat that you've got to get into if you want to run for governor or for any of our federal offices. He kept it narrowly focused on the job of the treasurer's office, which, beyond signing paychecks, really doesn't amount to much. And so can a Republican run for one of those other offices, talk about economics, talk about social issues in a way that doesn't antagonize the base and isn't an anathema to a majority of Delaware voters? I personally, I think the answer to that is no. We'll see in 2 years.
Yeah, really the question is how and is he going to kind of bridge the gap between the far right and the Tea Party and the 9/12 Patriots and the moderate Republicans, of which I think there are a few. I think there are a lot. And they have been very quiet, and I think have been disillusioned by what they have seen as far as leadership in the party. And now the question for Charlie is, okay, you're on an upswing. You've got these two disparate groups that you need to somehow either bring them together enough to continue the momentum, or create, I guess, maybe more of a visible distance because you think one is a stronger base than the other. I'm going to be really curious to see how he does this.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, the Valenzuela primary that Simpler went through in the treasurer's race, that's a different animal in a race for lieutenant governor or governor, because her attacks on social issues and on economic issues are more viable in one of those races. People are going to care a lot more about it if you're running for governor, if you're running for Congress, and you have a primary to the right. It's going to push him more in that direction.
Well, certainly new faces in Dover, but the leadership will stay the same. How do you think things will shape up next spring?
Well, Pete's going to be very lonely as the only Democrat from Sussex County.
Yeah.
Pete Schwarzkopf is.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that he will be fine. I mean, the majority is still in the Democrat hands, but I think he's lost a few of his friends down there, and it's going to feel lonely down in Sussex County.
When you look at the House caucus battle last year, I mean, at least 3 of Pete and Valerie Longhurst's key supporters are no longer there, including Becky Walker from the 9th. How that shakes out this year, I think we'll see.
Okay. Well, obviously, everything depends on the economy. Let's assume everything remains the way they are now. What do you think Markel's last 2 years will be like?
Can we have more initiatives? I mean, are we going to roll out an initiative every month? We've got schools, we've got water, we've got roads. What's left? How many more big initiatives can we have? I'd like to see one initiative actually come all the way to fruition. I think that's the key. He's put so many different visions out there on a range of different issues. Does he have the political clout now in what is going to be possibly a more, I mean, he is a lame duck governor at this point. Nobody's going to be out campaigning on his coattails again. Does he have the political clout in Dover to push anything through at this point?
I don't think that he's going to get now the gas tax or the water tax that he was looking at, because now clearly the voters have said enough taxes is enough, and we're making our voice heard. I mean, I think there's a general discontent with the Obamacare. I think that kind of shades over into the governor's race for Delaware. I think it's going to be really, really tough for him to get an increased tax, particularly the folks that were supportive of those taxes, even kind of mildly in the General Assembly, have now just had, many of them in the House of Representatives have just had to stand in a campaign in which they were beaten over the head because of the, the gas tax.
Yes.
And that was going to be the easier one than the water tax. So I don't see either of those two things happening.
It's going to be harder for him to enforce discipline, particularly in the House caucus.
Okay, well, we have to have you guys back sometime soon. Thanks so much, Stephanie and Mike Stafford. We appreciate it, and thank you guys for pulling this double duty. And, of course, being a part of State of Play. This interview can be found on newsworks.org/Delaware. Click the drop-down box at the top of the page.